Okay, we're back again at the 426th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, March 31st, 2022. Mr. Kesh, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to take questions and are you there? Maybe he needs a few.
Yes.
Okay.
So no, it's just I was touching the wrong button. It's like you having a couple of screens causes problems. There is something I want to show you before we go, and you just seen it. You literally past few minutes, which confirms the teaching of this morning. I referred to it in another teaching, but now maybe it has a different meaning. This is what you just saw in the advertising of vertical enhancement. And you see, where is the magnet unit? You see it because it's set to do that job. There it is. The teaching is in line with mass production because the teaching has always covered commercialization for people, more people to use it, to become aware of it, and to be able to understand it. In a way, we kept everything in line. The pot you were looking for sits at the bottom. Even when we look at what we call horizontal units, there's no difference. When you see the horizontal unit, the same process has been set with no difference. You see the units there. There is one here, and there is one here. In different shape or form. So we're not teaching you something that it just jumped out of the box. These systems are manufactured over a year ago. It's just bringing your knowledge to understand it, to the point of understanding that some of you, one of you might have seen it. No more powerful plasma technology has been taught than the magnet systems. And I said, when I was walking in the teaching hall in Trani, actually in Barletta, and when I saw that two Spanish couple, the guy was pushing with eyes to get the thing moving, and with the magnet unit, I said the human race is not ready. You're a bit too fast, too early. The knowledge of understanding, as I said, is exactly like a toy shop when you go to buy a toy. You see on the side of the box big numbers: 3, 8, 6, 12, 16, which means if you buy the one which is with the 3 and you have a child of 1, or even 2 or even 2.5 cannot play with a toy because the knowledge, the motoric, the coordination has not reached to be able to put a 3-year-old toy together. A lot of parents love to give a helicopter flying and everything written on the size 14 to the birthday of the 2nd year or 3rd year to their son, that I bought them such a good thing. But the child has to wait 10 years to gather the knowledge to be able to fly. But the question is, did the father buy the toy for himself? But trying to be happy that the child has got it in his name. The knowledge is the same as a understanding level. When you reach the point of understanding, you can play with the toy. The brain, the soul, the knowledge does not fit the soul of the physicality that it can play with the soul of the universe, but has no age gap. It's the maturity of understanding the knowledge of the creation, and it's you who decides that point, that knowledge to be absorbed, that knowledge to be understood, and in which way understood. The way he thought or the way suits me. We taught the Magna for universal system, becoming child of the universe, and you chose a Magna to be plugged in and get your 30 volt. We even built factories for it to make toys for infants day round. But the problem is, the child is a newborn, has not even become an infant to be able to use what is made. Now we understand, and you can see. And if you look, the systems are standing next to each other. And if you look, the mother sits in the back. And as I said, when you look at it, I was joyfully enjoying the commercial. And I thought, what can I say? If you look at it, in reality, I gave you the source, and in truth, and I gave you the pot. You have the source and you have the pot. Bring me the soul of the man. The rest is easy. Would you like to go to any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. And as
Can
usual,
I add something? Can I add something? Let's go back to something. I compared this to one of the, what I call, world leaders, some of those who make decisions for many of our lives. When you look at this enhancement unit, it's no different than what you see in real life. And there is no better way I can explain it than this. When you look at this unit, I can parallel it with what you as humans understand. This time of the year in Northern Hemisphere, we buy what I used to buy when I was a young boy, very small black seeds. We didn't know if it is real or not. They sold us what we call a black seed, which you get vegetation from. And we used to get this black seed. We used to look for it. It's a tradition in the Iranian culture and the whole of Silk Road. And we get the leaf of the white berry and we put this black seed on the leaf. And we watch it every day, came back from the school. Mama is still black. Mama is not changed. And Mama sometimes says, you see, I told you, the guy gave you black seed. And then after a few days, because we created the magnetic field interaction of that leaf with a seed, we created new dimension of field. This seed used to start moving. And it became a tiny little worm. And then it started eating the leaf. And then it grew. We were waiting. When they start growing, the anxious time, keeping them in the shoe box to start. Every day you open the box. Mama is still a worm. Just leave it there. Don't touch it. Change the leaves. Keep the environment the same. And then, after a few days, this gorgeous worm wiggling, start putting a silk line out, making a cocoon. But from inside, it uses, to my understanding as a child, his tail as a point of reference and starts silking around it. And then suddenly, the worm, gradually you see the shadow of it, and then you see the cocoon. And we wait anxiously. What is going to be? When is going to be the time when we see the freedom and the butterfly flies? And then, because it's in the box, we catch the butterfly. For a few seconds, it's ours, and the butterfly flies, becomes free. This machine is that machine. We already made you the cocoon. You bring the physicality of the man inside. We nourish it through the knowledge of the Creator, and we get the freedom of the soul, the butterfly. There is no difference in the point of mutation and conversion. It's understanding the knowledge of the freedom of the soul of the. Many times when I look at this system, I say, I wonder which butterflies and what color butterflies will come out of this system when they go in as a one, as a man, as a dimension of physicality, to take the flight of fancy, to become a new, to seed a new black seed. Next year, I'll have another one. And sometimes we used to keep these butterflies till they lay the egg. and then they used to die. But the soul of the man does not reach that point of death. They become part of the other. We have given you the cocoon. You have to make that butterfly to fly. This is the beauty of the knowledge if you understand it. And this is where we lack in most of the knowledge seekers, this knowledge. And it's a time for change. We have laid the leaf, we have put the seed in, we have seen the worm cycle of life of man for thousands of years, and now we have built you the cocoon. It's you to understand it, and in the future, man will make that silk cocoon from the soul of itself to allow the soul of physicality become embedded within the soul of the man and to take the flight of fancy. But the beauty with this is, if you understand it, you can take any flight of fancy anytime that you wish. And then you can lay your eggs anywhere in the universe as a new cycle of life. Any questions?
Okay, I'll remind our attendees they can raise their virtual hands in order to ask a question. We can open the microphone for you then. We do have a hand up with Salamia to begin with. So perhaps we'll start there. Hello, Salamia. Can you open your mic there?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Keshe, I would like to ask you something regarding the shield of protection. I know you teach entire community about this aspect, but in the future, if you like to go back and refresh our memory, will be very nice and useful, if you like. Romanian community just asked me to ask you. That's why I had the today the courage to ask you.
I know why the Romanian community is asking this question. You are having a threat sitting on your northern borders with Ukraine. And you have a fear of nuclear explosion or chemical attack within the boundaries of Ukraine, or which might expel over you, or you become the victims of it. The shield of protection is, again, man's way of dealing with it. Try to raise the soul of the world leaders that we do not reach that point. Because if we get to that elevation, then for centuries our children would not suffer with contamination. If we just create a shield for ourselves, it's a selfishness that we are protected. But I understand both reasons and both conditions. We blamed the Russians for a lot, what they've done, what they're doing. In principle, we understand it, and a lot of it is wrong. But on the other hand, we understand their position to protect the integrity of their culture and their religion. Up to now, we were always considered the West as a saint. But now we know with the documents available, especially in the past few days, coming out of what we see from the IEA papers in the background, and some other organizations, the American government and the scientists have been building naughty things within Ukraine and financing these kind of things. And it goes back some of it to the leaders of the West. And we have to enlighten them not to make these things in the future that leads to these conditions. We are not pro-Americans or pro-Russians or pro-anything, but when your house gets attacked, when the house is on fire, you do something about it. And now we have enough knowledge and information to know in a very small way, but could be crucial or fundamental. And it came very much into front in the negotiations in Istanbul in the past few days, that when the two cannot trust, let's make a no man land a free zone. And this is part of the condition that nobody can create nuclear or biochemical factories in Ukraine. And it becomes a neutral position. And in essence, there is a possibility of both nuclear and biochemical. But if we see biochemical, I have a very good idea. If we see nuclear, I have a very good idea who will do it. And for sure, it's not Russians. 100% sure it will not be Russians. Because we saw the same game by the Western world in Iraq. We saw the same game in Libya. So there's a bad reference there. And there is a cause was concern from all leaders to stop playing these games in the background. And the documents which are opening up and appearing gives a lot of not a good indication, especially to the United States, what I call games in these areas. Can you please close your microphone? In that position, to that effect, try to raise the soul of the world leaders, that they come to understanding and this thing can be resolved, both in Vatican, in Moscow churches, and now that it's got out of hand in the White House and in the Kremlin. We know families of Romanians within 2 kilometers of the Ukrainian border. We are in touch with. We know the concern. We are closely in touch with Northern Romanian community to watch any operation on a daily basis. In so many ways, if it happens, which might happen with we see mainly to come from the west and the east side of the border, always have a combination of the 3 ganses in principle with you. Try to keep the CH3 out of the position. Make your ganses in a deep condition of the gans and not the water. Try to use it outside the building than inside the building. Hold the radiation and hold the, what we call any chemical effect into the wall outside and inside. We can spray the buildings. Try to create and use as much amino acid into the water you use, that anything which is in balance with the human level is absorbed and kept outside. And if you come to it, that is used, try to not to touch these areas for 3 to 6 months or maybe up to a year, because they absorb the energies, and usually summertime heat will disperse some of it, but the winter ice will change the composition of the release. What you absorb as a massive energy will be released next 6 to 12 months. Try to, in a way you are used to in most of the places, to whitewash. Do not use these things on your clothing under no circumstances. If you are in a vehicle, you travel, try to wash your car with it, but try to avoid the outside of the car if you receive contamination. I always, when I was a student in Queen Mary College, my professors at the beginning had a big objection the way I used to share knowledge with this about nuclear contamination. And I always said, when you see the light of a nuclear explosion, walk into it. Don't walk away from it. If you see it, you have already received it. It will be a lifetime of misery. This is what I know from the nuclear industry. If you see the light of explosion, walk to it. If it's too far from you, you hear or you get, you can control the way I explained. Because when you see the light, the fields of the radiation has already passed through your body. And the mutation of the fields has already started. But if you are near a chemical or biological effect, it's just biology, biological warfare. Biology needs amino acid. And there's a limitation of how much is in the air. If it's in your direction, if it's not absorbed, it'll come through the building, it'll come through the house. You hold it outside the house. You hold it outside the car. We are not all sitting in the house waiting for it. We are traveling, we're shopping, we are going from place to place. You need the three combination of the copper, the zinc, and CO2 with a huge amount of amino acid. If you have cup 1 life with this amino acid, mix into it. If you have a cup life 2 with it, mix into it. And make sure you have plenty of amino acid. This should attract what is your body is another biological body walking. When others have absorbed it, is less to come to you. If you inhale or you breathe it, you're already contaminated. Follow the same procedure, but 0.9% salt. That it matches the salt of the body of the man, and it can take it out of the body. Just be patient. Do not expect I drank it, it should change. It'll change gradually. It'll take it out of the body gradually. Never is a difference between the virus and the biological. Virus is energy, biological is part of your body, it's the biology of your body. You handle it totally different way. In a way, you put so many traps in front of it that it does not get to you by the time, or you don't get the strength of it, which is interacting with the cell of the body. With the nuclear accident, it is the same. You have to cover yourself with the same process. Use a lot of gallons of CO2 with amino acid because you have to.
Hello, Mr. Kesh. We lost the audio there, I believe. Or at least I did. Ah, okay. Bear with us. We appear to have temporarily lost the connection with Mr. Kesh. I'm sure he'll be back shortly.
We receive in Romania iodine from doctors in case they prepare it. They exist for every citizen. And we have to go to the doctor to take it. But this is not only for radioactive iod, not for cesium and other type of radioactivity. And this is a problem. So we need Mr. Cash.
Yeah, I was going to try to introduce your question there in the Q&A to him because it's appropriate now with the question about whether the use of that non-radioactive iodine to replace in the thyroid gland is that a good idea, or is there a better way to do it, or do you use that in combination with other treatments and remedies, or how does that work? So that's about the only treatment I've heard of that the government gives out to people. They do that in Canada where people live close to a nuclear reactor. They'll give out the iodine kits for the pills for people. Just in case. But as you mentioned in your Q&A question here, the medicine does not protect against other radioactive elements such as cesium-134 or cesium-137. Hence your request to please teach us about the KF protection shield. Suppose there might also be a question about the use of masks during a radioactive event. Because if you have a mask, it would block some of the particles that might have radioactive elements attached to the particles. On the other hand, then you'd have a mask full of radioactive particles that the whole mask is then radioactive. So at some point you would want to get rid of the mask because it would be doing more harm than good. Perhaps similar to some of the other things we've been under with the mask restrictions in a way. Well, we still don't hear from Mr. Kesh here. He must be having a little trouble getting connected. So bear with us here.
I hope he'll be back. We know that this conflict, it's all about New World Order also. Because China, India will be the new hegemonical powers in the future. And Russia now is a friend with China, and because Western powers refuse to work together. Mr. Putin just asked to be part of NATO, but he was refused. So yeah, it's better to be together, all the planet, to have a world federation, like a international state, but a federation. Yeah.
I was pondering the idea that what if every single nation in the world had to be part of NATO, and that if any nation tried to have a war with any other nation, that would mean by their definition, all the other nations would have to gang up on that one country that was trying to cause a war.
Yes, you are right. We are talking about the concept of collective security. NATO has now a concept of collective defense. But
Yes,
United
but
Nations has this concept which we are talking about, that all parts are included in this system of collective security. And if one is not complying with the rules, all will be against. Now NATO is a regional.
But what if we had it so that if anyone used any weapon on against any other country, like period, that would be the rule, then instantly they would have all other countries would have to join in order to stop that threat. So it would make it so it wouldn't be worthwhile to have an army in a way, because all the other countries would be against you and would take you down so fast it would be ridiculous to even try.
Yeah.
Because now, if all the countries had an off button to the other countries, so that any country invaded, they would push the off button for that country, and the countries wouldn't try to invade or harm another country in that way, because it wouldn't pay off. They would lose the privilege of doing so. But I don't think we've quite gone to that point yet, but it seems like we're on the edge of some major changes in the structures of the leadership on the planet. So I think the next few weeks here will show some huge changes, way more than we can imagine.
You know that maybe it was a Russian, or I don't know, origin, a gentleman who proposed cooperative security, not collective security, cooperative security to be the new concept of NATO. And to include in this cooperative security, collective security, collective defense, and partnership. So to have a international structure of security and all states to be involved, as you said. I hope that the history will do like this. It's necessary.
Can I come in? Sorry about that. I do apologize. I had to leave, and it was an important, very important call for the foundation, and it's part of what we call the peace talks. We cannot refuse these calls or put them on hold. They have to be acted upon immediately. As you were trying to say, this situation exists if we stop the wars, if we create a condition of the destruction of the borders by delivery of the enhancement units, flight units, when you can travel anywhere, anytime. These stupid, what I call race of domination between the nations and making enemy of the others will stop. We've seen it it's not Ukraine, you just explained, neutral position. We saw it in past week. When I was a child, Tehran was the only airport in the whole of Middle East, in the Arab nation, where an Israeli airline used to land. If you're a Jew, you came from Russia, you come to Tehran, and then you get a flight to immigrate to Israel. We lost that point because of what I call dogmatism and everything else which came. But the strangest thing is, the Arab state gathered in the state of Israel, in a way, part of the old Egypt, in a meeting a few days ago. This was unheard of, because they made another enemy, which is the state of Iran, to bring them for us to be able to sell them more, to make. Why couldn't Iran be part of the same table? What has changed? This separation, creation of division, and these things are fed by Rothschild family. We've seen Soros now is on the international warrant arrest for starting the Ukrainian, promoting the Ukrainian war. It's not just Russia who has issued the warrant for the arrest of Soros. Chinese have done the same because they've seen him. He interfered first with China. Now they found the source. And he works through Illuminatis and the Vatican. Cyrus cannot move anywhere anymore. It's a warrant, and if they capture him, even on flight, he'll spend years in Siberia and in the prisons in China. We create the new technology to create the condition of no borders, sharing of the technology, and being able to work together. And this will stop this position, what we've seen in Ukraine. And it's literally the job of knowledge seekers. Support of the soul of the world leaders by the Universal Council and the rest of the knowledge seekers, and the knowledgeable knowledge seekers to bring the technology forward, to be able to be shared by everyone, that we don't create borders. The borders has to be the atmosphere of the universe, where it still is not a border, it's part of another part of another life. And negotiating to make Ukraine neutral, negotiating to get some people on our side that we can do more, has to finish. This is what I said to John last night. Do you want me to send you the enhancement unit and then you send them to NASA and then they work with you, or do you want me to send them directly to NASA? Because we are about to ship. That it brings a connection. We give a box to NASA. Their box is empty. We give the unit to Arizona, our box is full. The reactors are getting made. And the beauty of it is, I said to people in the factory, build units that we can give to NASA too, but let them feel the change in the knowledge. If it's given to them, it becomes another race, another point of race. But let them see it. What can we do? We have an empty box. Go back, as I said many times, to the story of 1950s, when the Americans sent the empty matchbox to Russia, and they waited for it. And then the Russians sent the matchbox back, and the American scientists told the Russians, you didn't see there was a, what we call now nanowires, very thin wire was in the matchbox. The Russian scientists answered, my friends, look through the wire. We have made a hole in it. It became a pipe. The race should be amongst the scientists and the knowledge, not borders. And what it was, something very big, maybe 50 years ago, making nanowires, now it's a common knowledge because we shared it. We didn't make borders for it. And trying to get Ukraine neutralized and other satellite countries would not work. When will be the next nation? When would be the next territory? When would it be the next planet? The man wants to share. Americans have half of the planet, we have the other half. The universal community would not allow it. So look at it two ways. Try to teach, it's the responsibility of the Universal Council to become that soul that shines upon all, that brings all our world leaders to one point. Bring all of our systems to one point. And we will see the whole structure moving up. And we don't need to worry about if it's going to be a nuclear, if it's going to be a chemical war. The biggest war we have sitting between the churches of Vatican and the Catholic Church. The Russian Church, Orthodox Church. If the Russian Orthodox Church asks Putin to pull out today, they will be out today. That decision has not been made. These are soldiers of what we call mercenaries of the religion under the banner of nationalism. Pray with the soul of the leaders that we don't need to negotiate what's going to happen to other satellites, countries next to all the Baltic nations, which are still part of the Russian, what we call USSR. And they were hoping if one child jumps, we let him jump and see what happened to it, and the rest of us will go to NATO. It will not happen. Ukraine had the military power to battle a little bit and got a lot of support from Americans and others. They'll wipe them out. They become part of the Russian territory within 24 hours. It's a bigger game, but primarily, if you are in that border, we are keeping a very close touch with the Romanian community at the borderline in northern territory of Romania. We are keeping a very close touch. We haven't left you alone, and we'll support you. But it is there. Try to make as much gases as you can in a case. And even now, if you put the gases outside, in a way, you might not receive some of the smells you smell nowadays, but in 24 months or 12 months will go away. But if there is anything, you're already protected. Zinc is needed for neurosystem. Copper is needed for your muscle tissues. CO2 is needed for connection of lines. Mixed with amino acid, it takes it first than you do. If you have a little bit of worries, mix some calcium with this amino acid that you stop any residue into the bone structure if you have injuries, physical injuries. That's all you need to do. When it comes to the nuclear level, do the same. But as we've done before, with a nuclear attack, try to keep in hand plenty of H3 and CH3. That's a different technique, that's a different approach. And you can literally convert, absorb, you mix it again with the same mixture. That is on the strength of the amino acid of the man.
Mr. Kesh, what about the use of the potassium iodide pills? Is that useful?
It has never worked. It's just a psychological game played. We came to this conclusion years ago in nuclear industry. If you lived around SCK in Belgium, a nuclear power plant, they have been given these tablets for years. You have to have it. It's not known public, but because I used to collaborate with SCK and WITO, which is the Belgian nuclear side, all the people who live within a certain radius from SCK have been given the iron tablets, and they have to use it. And it doesn't really work. You get more, if you look at it, out of the, what you call it, walnut. Buy a dry walnut and soak it in the cold water. Leave it for a day. It becomes brownish color. This carries more natural iron than you get in these tablets. And then you use it, you mix it with the CO2 and amino acid of CO2. And you can, it's digestible. If there is anything, it washes out of your body. This is the best source of iron. And actually, I threw about a liter of it away yesterday. You just buy walnuts, dry walnuts, or now if you can find a fresh ones, and just soak them for 24 hours. Add a CO2 and the amino acid of CO2. If you want, if it's a neuro damage, add a little bit of zinc to it, and you can just drink as a digestive system to wash any nuclear power problems. That's the best way if you're taking it, and it's the most effective way. You can wash your body with it. We see it. I know this from the time in Queen Mary College when we used to get contaminated. They wash you with chemicals, but literally it's zero effect. If you have particles on your body, you can take radiation. The best source of iodine is the walnut. Just soak it for 24 hours and keep it. You can freeze it. Don't add gases to it till the time of use. And you can even use it after contamination if there is a radiation contamination. And in northern Romania, there is plenty of walnuts. We've been in that area recently, so I know very well what's going on. I've been to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers from the border very recently. Any other question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kesh.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. We hope we will not use it. Never.
It's there if there is a need for it, but we hope so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. There's no more hands up right now. We have a couple of questions in the YouTube and in our Q&A here. So first question from Katie Ivana. Good morning, Mr. Kesh. My question is, what technique or method should I use to achieve teleportation in the physicality? Thank you.
Teleportation in physicality does his impossibilities that you can replace and position every cell back into itself, that your leg doesn't appear on your arms and your arms on your back. The only way to do is to carry the transmutation of the soul of the man and soul of the physicality of the man. And that order will be kept when you transfer position. It needs a nuclear power station to transfer one, if can be done, cell across totally with all its characteristics and memories. It takes a small maglev unit with no power supply to transfer the whole soul of the man and soul of physicality of the man. You have to understand the knowledge.
Okay. Another question from Jan in YouTube. Can we use beta plus and beta minus decay in a lead acid battery to generate electricity? How do we convert it to a current flow, and how to amplify the current to a level that can run a home?
Ask the people who know the physical side of battery making. I never did electronics and electricals.
Okay, question from Peng Peter in YouTube. What happens if two people walk into the enhancement unit instead of one? Do you get different results now that two souls are present?
What happens if the mother is pregnant with triplets? Do we leave the children behind and you just carry the mother, or carry one of the babies? It's the soul of connection. You don't need to hug each other and cuddle each other. Usually you go to a box with somebody you know. You have a connection with them. And sometimes you have to accept the condition you put. You agree with it. That's the temporary. We travel in the soul, and you go your way. I don't know if anything happened to you like this before. You've been forced to stay with somebody you have no connection, no understanding. You don't know them at all, but you have to stay in the same room or sleep in the same room. It's a weird feeling. It's happened to me once, and I don't want it to happen again. We were on a flight from London to Frankfurt, somewhere to Hamburg, and then they had to bus us down, and it was the weather so bad that they had to get any hotel to get people in to wait the storm for 48 hours. And you were given a room with another guy, you had to share, you had no choice, and it was a very strange feeling. But sometimes in space technology, we have to come to that point, but it can be done. Each soul decides on its destiny. Any other question?
A simple question from Jean-Claude. Can this heal the body?
What?
I guess he's referring to the flight unit, perhaps. Maybe he hasn't seen the other units, but can this heal the body?
We are not in a healing process. We are in process of enhancing. Healing is a job of the doctors. We don't interfere, we don't enter it. And when they couldn't understand that we are in a process of enhancement of the soul of the cell of the man, they accuse us of interfering with the medical system. We have nothing to do with medical. You enhance the condition, and the condition, if you accept it, it reaches its point of elevation.
Okay, we have Andreas with a hand up here. If you'd like to go ahead, Andreas.
Yes, good morning, good day to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. I, by mistake, opened my microphone before. We have a question out of the German-speaking community where a few questions are in one, but I believe it's understandable. It's about why coated wire connection is better as an interface than a coated continuous wire, and what does this interface do with a wire connection? How is the field flow through a wire connection?
You see, when you...
With connections of two coated wires, or with a bare wire and a coated wire, or
if you take... Yeah, I understand this question has raised many, many times. When you have a wire, you connect between one plate and another, nano-coated. You have the matter state still inside it. So you're connecting partially on a superconductor on a nanolayer and partially through the copper wire in a molecular, what we call vibration of the atoms. When we ask you to cut and reconnect, now the matter state is taken out. The interface is only on a superconductor level, on a nanolayer. And only those which can jump that gap, they do it. I used to do this as demonstrations. If I know there's a lot of Dutch listeners and Belgians who used to come to presentations. I used to do 2 or 3 a week sometimes around Holland and Belgium. And I used to carry a small Christmas tree with me, which lights up, it flashes. And I used to connect the Christmas tree by 2 wires to a battery. And by a law of physics, there was 2 wires. And if you twist the wires together, the battery blows up the light or the battery blows up. But the lights used to come on, and we used to show the resistance, what we call isolation properties of the nanomaterials. Then sometimes we used to get a battery to be heated up. We used to come to a boiling point. This was when the matter states could not connect at the junction of the battery. And it was totally what we call nano layers to the body, nano coated the battery, and he used to literally boil it up. And we used to disconnect it and reconnect it back again, that we lose that matter state connection established again. So it's when you cut a nanowire and reconnect it, then a full length of wire, you literally go into superconductor, energy absorption, and everything else which goes with nanomaterials. And I always cut the nanowires in connection to another, because then I take the electric current out of it. You have this, that's why some of you have a failure in your MAGRAPH systems. You don't nanocoat properly. You think you nanocoated, but somewhere in one of the twists is not nanocoated. You're running on an energy flow. And then you say, my MAGRAPH system doesn't work properly. One of the best ways when you make MAGRAPH units is to nanocoat your wires before production of the coil, and then again nanocoat it when you finish the whole lot. Don't steam coat it. Go through nanocoating. And then you see you have a different performance MAGRAPH unit. Because then you work on the energy transfer in the superconductor level, not through the electron vibration. But when you do the nanocoating of the wires, before you make the coil, make sure you don't play much with your wires. Just do the coiling. And then when you finish the whole set, you connected everything, nanocoat it once more, that you cover any earth connections, or what we call matter state connection. Any other question? By the way, thank you very much, as you from the German group. I was in the exhibition center yesterday, and there's a lot of Germans. There's a group of 8 or 10 of them. They come in groups to the exhibition center. We try to support, and we have Mario there, who's been supporting the Keshe Foundation translation for years as a presenter in the center. It was a beautiful presentation, and now it's open. Go to the center and see. It's a touching. I had 3 powerful people around Europe with me yesterday in the exhibition center. When we went through the presentation, I presented the technology to them. They were shocked at how this technology has changed. And when I finished, they said, we set to change the course, because now we understand the change. And these people are decision makers. These are people who bring changes in the background to many things we do in our normal lives. And they were shocked to see. And by the time we finished, the knowledge seekers from Germany were there, and they could not understand. This knowledge is so well spread in Germany and in Europe amongst the knowledge seekers, and some of these people are totally not aware of it. And his word was, I am shocked in what I have seen. And we received a report from their offices this morning. You have changed something in the 3 men. They want to see the knowledge right across Europe as fast as possible. Thank you very much for your support from Germany and Austria and the rest of the Europe who are going to the exhibition center to see the new knowledge. It's set beautifully. It brings the whole knowledge together. On the one floor, you see what we call material earth application. On the floor below is a space technology. Very simple, but very effective. A new life of the man. Above is the life of the man on Earth. Below is the life of the man in space. And it's gorgeously set up. Thank you very much to the people in the background who run this center for us, especially to Klaus, Diana, and Mario, and the rest who see these things going so smooth in Austria. Any other question?
Yes, we have several questions from Dan here. First one is glass that has aluminum oxide. This matter, silicon oxide and other oxides, by temperature, we have nanomaterials. The question is glass in the material state nano or GANs?
It's matter.
Okay.
It's still matter. The process of a GANs making is not just by heating. It's allowing to balance its energies with its environment. This is the understanding of when you create the nanomaterials. We are not in the molecular state just because we melted it or we heated it, we created nanomaterial.
There's a similar question for, is the water on this planet in a material state, a nano state, such as hydroxide of hydrogen or hydrogen nano, or a GANs?
It's a holder of gases, but is in the condition of plasmatic field, but is a matter state condition of the matter. In the liquid, the water, like waters of the oceans, carry so much matter state, matter in them, that they partially, through some of the operation of the earth, have become nano. So you throw nanomaterial into a water, the matter state. So now the oceans are matter state, GANs condition, magnetic field, and allowing through the strength of the material fields of like universal cup to lead to creation of the specific gases which leads to life. We see this, we talked about this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, about in northern China, there is area where more or less iron oxide is prevalent on the beaches. During the summertime, with the heat of the summer and the material itself nanosizes itself. And in the spring and the winter time, with the storms and with the rain, these nanomaterials are washed away into the rivers, into North China Sea. And because of the presence of the nano iron and other materials, we see the establishment of first OMIBs, the first cycle of life in these oceans. In a way, the way you put your nano iron in the box and you create that blood, now these nanoparticles create nano gases, which in combination with the protein which comes from the surface of the water in the revolving of the oceans with waves, leads to creation of the first life. And then these lives grow so much, that's why we see a vast fishing areas in northern China's northern seas, because the life starts on the beaches with the ions which nanocoat. And then in coming in, the water of the North China Sea becomes a GANs pot with ions in it, because they create their own magnetic field environment, and with it, with the other particles of iron which are not nano-coated and they washed in, they create the first cycle of the what we call the blood, the cycle of OMIBs, and the same first cycle of life. And we know this very clearly. I've done a lot of work on this And the outcome of understanding this technology is how we produce a lot of different kind of bloods. And the way you create different kind of bloods, you can create mono blood system that it fits every animal on this planet. And we discussed this, we went through this with the head of in Ghana with authorities there, because they said this fits everyone. When we took the blood to FDA in Ghana, their scientists, their leading scientists as consultants for different aspects, they immediately tested it. They said this fits the way you produce it. We can inject it to a man of any kind of blood. We inject it to an animal, it still works the same. There's a specific way to produce human blood, hemoglobin. And if you fit it, it fits everyone. It doesn't matter in deviation in animal. You cannot inject blood of a donkey to a rabbit or to a man. But the hemoglobin blood, the way we produce it, fits all of them. FDA scientists tested in Ghana and he was shocked. He said, this changes the whole game of the medicine. And it's so pure, it carries no infection. The purity of not carrying infection comes because of the copper nanolayer. It brings that, see, in body of the man, we use sulfur and phosphor for this job. But in the condition of the muscle tissue, why your muscles don't rot is not so much with the phosphor, it's the copper itself, which sterilizes the cell system. And I have managed to, it's a specific way to do it. It cannot be done normal. And then you produce blood which fits every creation, every created thing on this planet, which is life. You can inject it to a plant, more or less. Any other question?
Speaking of blood, there was the next question in the YouTube was from Time, who says, I wonder, would Wim hot breathing or an alternative technique of breathing help to make all the blood of everyone also absorb and process radioactive fields?
What does that mean?
Well, I guess he's asking, are there breathing techniques that can activate the blood and help absorb or process radioactive particles or fields?
Theoretically, yes. Practically, very difficult.
So if you're a Tibetan yogi practicing for 40 years, breathing techniques, you might have a better chance or something like that?
Oh, maybe an infant from the womb of the mother.
Okay.
It just depends how it fits, where it fits. There's an old say, says, if it fits, it sits. So it depends. If it does fit, then it can sit in the system.
Maybe something the Romanians can practice and give us feedback on. Jan has a question in the YouTube, and another 5+1 question. Why the U.S. is putting new sanctions on Iran if Mr. Kesh believes that Iran and the 5+1 have already reached an agreement behind the scenes, while the U.S. and the West are pushing China, Russia, and Iran into a corner?
This is a policy game. It's a politic. It's a pure politic. Once this is signed, this time America is committed to it. And the way the negotiation is done is very interesting, the way Iran has negotiated. If, again, the president changes and they bring in new sanctions or change things than the 5+1 agreement of 2015, the 5+1 will put sanctions on the United States. And they have to cover more or less any damages, financially or whatever, which might come to Iran because of the sanctions. This is one of the things which Iran has got America cornered. And so that in past 2 weeks, we see a lot of juggling is partially played by the Americans, partially played by the British in the background. But in a sense, so the contract is already signed. Everything is agreed. It's just playing game on talks and how to do it, and trying to pressurize Iran into another point, which you will soon understand, and we've seen it coming up with Russia. They closed their SWIFT and everything else, and the Russians only accept rubles as a payment for their oil and gas, which means the European banks have to go across with the sacks of rubles to the Russians for the payment for the heating. And this is part of the pressure they're putting on Iran to increase the production of the gas in the South Iranian fields. It's all political games played, that the Iranians reduce production to support the Russians to bring ruble into the international currency. And the Chinese are supporting it as well the same way, because they're trying to bring the BRICS into operation very cleverly. It'll most probably end up BRIC becoming official currency worldwide, because they will not buy what they call rubles, but they'll accept the BRICS. It's a gamemanship by China is played in the background. And Iran is a word game victim of it for the next few days till something is achieved. But in principle, everything is done. Iran is used as a scapegoat for a lot of them to get what they want and bringing a lot of it. One of the reasons China is supporting Russia is the way the Russians have brought, the Russians to push the rubles forward as a payment. But the Russians will say, okay, you can't pay us in rubles, you can pay us in BRICS currency coming up. And it's going to be a mayhem in the West if the Russians close the tap. You're talking about 9 million barrels of oil a day missing from the production, which is about 15% of the world production, and cannot be so easily replaced. And the Russians cannot put a close on it because the pipelines will chock-a-block their close. It's a gamemanship and not much to it. The biggest problem is now how China is playing Russia against the West, and by supporting and backing him. We saw it when Anatoly was arrested. When they issued his warrant for his arrest, Chinese immediately backed it. We know why. We know the reason, because he financed for Vatican the uprising in Hong Kong. Any other question?
I'd like to try to get in Dan's further questions here, which are, what happens if I put rotary reactors with lead GaNs, several reactors with different speeds, or another GaNs of heavy materials? Dan wants to know what happens when he rotates his reactor with lead GaNs, or other GaNs of heavy.
You never touch a lead GaNs.
Yeah, I think we've told him that several times now.
Never ever touch a lead GaNs. Change the subject. Forget about it. Just go somewhere else, please.
Okay.
You never ever touch a lead GaNs, especially making it dynamic. Go and read why fuels were withdrawn and changed from the lead base. Then you understand the reason. Anything with aluminum and lead, you keep away unless you know exactly what you're doing and you work on a protected environment of it.
Yeah, they just did a test recently about the effect of the lead in the gas back in the 1960s and 70s and 50s and before that, and how much it decreased the IQ of the population during that time. And
how much increased the Alzheimer's?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Okay. If Gail had a question in the YouTube and probably some other people about the walnut shell that you mentioned, and
It's not the walnut shell, the walnut itself.
the walnut meat, then you mean.
Yeah.
So she says after removing the shell of the walnut, then you dry it?
You
Or
don't
how
need
do
to
you-
dry it. You can still use it wet. You get that substance.
And how would people use it? Would they put it into a CO2 kit or other?
Yeah, you use it in a
meats?
CO2 kit with amino acid. Because if you look, usually on top of this water, there is some oil which comes from the what do you call it, walnut. You can use a hot oil and get the hot water and get it out. You can boil the what do you call it, walnut, and get the oil out plus the what do you call it, but you get other things out of it when you boil it. And you mix it with CO2 and zinc, and it's effective for nuclear fallouts if you breathe it.
Okay, how about one more question here? I think you probably want to get. Do you want to continue, Mr. Kesh? Are you
Yeah,
okay with that,
no
or
problem.
how are you
Yeah.
doing there? Okay.
No problem.
More from Dan. If I extract from the copper GANs the oxygen, the same principle for tritium and deuterium, what is left? Copper
What?
material or
Can you
GANs?
repeat?
If I extract from the copper GANs the oxygen, and the same principle for tritium and deuterium, then what is left? Copper material or GANs of copper, or the copper field?
Have you ever done it?
Says, I know I didn't understand. That's why I ask. But,
No. You always get a copper composite when you try to extract the oxygen. Always finds another link to itself. There is a specific way to produce H3 from CH3. It's a specific way to produce oxygen from extract oxygen from copper. And immediately it absorbs another oxygen molecule. Immediately. And you find out your oxygen turns out to be very fast increasing level of water in your container, because that oxygen you separated will come mix with what do you call it, with the hydrogen in the environment. But in a specific way, you can keep the oxygen. There are a lot of people who think they make hydrogen or H2 or H3, but in fact, if you put a magnet next to it, you see it is not. You have actually got a composition of what we call iron. It is not oxygen or H2.
okay, we have a question from Cristiano, actually from Marco from Brazil, and through Cristiano. Mr. Cashian, people who have had an angioplasty and placed a stent drink the water from the GANs cup 1 and cup 2.
Pardon?
If people have had an angioplasty or a heart stent or some sort of artery stent or whatever, is it okay for them to drink the water from GANs 1 and 2? I think that must mean the CO2 GANs and zinc oxide GANs, I think, or it means cup 1 and cup 2. I'm not sure what they mean by that.
I don't understand it that we don't answer the question half cooked.
Okay, maybe they can reformulate the question. Nikolai says, if the 5-cup stacker we have made has evaporated all of its waters, is it best to simply refill it or to rebuild it again from the beginning? Or do we just continue to go through using the fields?
Can you
Rather
repeat
than-
this? I
If
don't
the
understand.
Okay, if the 5-cup stacker that we made has evaporated all of its waters, is it best to simply refill or rebuild it again from the beginning?
Refill it. We do that all the time.
Okay, yeah. From Kleber from Brazil, is oil a GANS or a plasma, or is it really fossil? Did you get that one, Mr. Kesh?
No.
Case regarding oil.
Yeah.
So is oil considered a GANS, or is it a plasma, or is it a really fossil?
Oil is an amino acid in a suspension of the atmospheric field interaction. It's like water. It's like if you can change the environmental magnetic fields of oil, you can change it to a vapor or to a solid without heat. And so it's environmental dependent. Any other question?
Second here, we've got a couple of hands up there. I think Andreas was up before. Jalal. Jalal is here. Would you like to go ahead, Jalal?
Yes, thank you, Rick. Hello, Mr. Cash. Good day.
Hi, Jalal. How are you?
I am fine, Mr. Cash. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I was talking about you a couple of days ago. Good things, not bad things. I don't know anything bad about you, but
I
That's the way.
always talk about you every second. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cash. Mr. Cash, I am like you, a small magician. I do not appear everything I have in my pocket.
Mhm.
So this is something I learned from you a long time ago. It's not really a question, but to understand only. Do I must see what is the output of whatever I do, not the input?
No, look at what comes to you. The output will decide itself. When you look at to what you put outside, you become judge of yourself. And a man should never judge himself in that way, what I put out, because then sometimes the arrogance takes over. I'm doing a lot.
But
Be
is it,
thankful of what you receive. The others will come to it if you're not so.
but isn't that, you know, in your teaching, you say what you are giving out is important, because what you are giving out, you receive in the you know, similar similar plasma.
Not necessarily. Sometimes, most of the time, you empty a gap which anything can fit in what you receive. And sometimes that gap allows you to receive a higher order because of the combination of the fields inside. We never measure by it. This is when you start measuring, is the time which you have not asked it many times. You haven't done enough.
Mr. Cash, with your teaching, it's always like juggling between the rock and the egg.
Oh, let's put it this way. I juggle between a stone and a stone, and if you're lucky, one side is the egg. It's the process of understanding for what you're doing and what the reason you do, and the way you do it. What you put out, the reason you put out. As I always said, you give from your soul more to your enemies because they need it. In a way, you need it to understand your enemies, that you might be the cause of that animosity, not that you might change them. So it's self-awareness, you call it, of what you receive, that you put no condition on what you give. It's a very, very fine line. It's a very, very touchy line. But you have to be there to be it. I was talking to most probably one of the a very powerful woman in the world of finance in the world this morning. She's a good friend. And she said, Mehran, there is a problem. I get tired of having to sleep all night last night, trying to sort this thing for you and everything else, and I'm exhausted. I said, you know something? What we were trying to do maybe 6 months ago, you remember it didn't happen, and then you got upset with it. You said yes. I said, because we were not ready for it. I don't look at it as something went wrong. It means it wasn't the time for it. The souls couldn't agree that we can do it. And so let it be. Maybe it's not the time for it. You don't need to lose the sleep. We do our best because it's to help. It's not for us. And she wrote back to me just before the teaching, says, I learned a lot and you were correct. I was expecting something to happen that time. And now it's time for it because now I see how far we were from what we were expecting 6 months ago. You have to give on a condition that there is somebody and everything else agrees with it. There's no use you giving money to a beggar who goes and spends it on a drug and alcohol and get himself more in problem of health and damaging himself and his family. You think you were generous, but in fact you created more problem, and you say, oh, I gave €1, where am I going to get back to? In fact, you get €1 that you can demise the life of a man you might lose to, because you were partially playing it. So never counts, it's just there to what we do, to what has to be done. Any other question? You usually have 2 questions, Jalal.
No, Mr. Cash, it was not a question. It's only to say hello to you.
Observe.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Cash.
much. Thank you indeed. Any other questions? Shall we call it a day?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cash. Let me see here. From Rhino040672 in the YouTube, when you say that hydrogen is the release of balance, that allows it to exist in different compositions of amino acids. What do you mean?
Exactly what he said. All
Did
the
you get that
amino
one, Mr. Kesh?
acids, yes, all the amino acids are not the
Oops,
same.
I'm seeing your microphone moving, but I'm not hearing you. Perhaps it's on my system, but I'm not sure.
Can you hear me? Oh, Cabo says
Kay
I can
says he
hear him.
hears you, so
I think it's
perhaps
something
something's
wrong
gone
here.
wrong with my system. Let me see
Yeah,
if I
you pressed the wrong button. And, I'll sing for you till you get it. Dee 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 dee. Have you got it? Can you
still.
hear it?
Now I can hear for some reason, so it just kicked in. My sound had kicked out for a while there, so not sure what
Okay.
happened.
Oh, it's okay. He had the time of rest. It's been used to me. As we say, always say, every man with a mustache is not your uncle. Just because you create an amino acid is not that all the amino acids are the same. Every hydrogen, a slight deviation in the strength creates a different amino acid. The same with the carbon, the same with the oxygen or nitrogen in the amino acid. So when you produce different type of gases, even while you're producing same type of gases, depending on if the cat walked by the side of it, if the baby cried, if the music was different, if your wife shouted in the corridor, it changes different composition of amino acid creating in your mixture. Because each one of them introduces or takes fields from that box you're sitting on, the amplifier. But according to the emotion and the talk and whatever is there, it changes the hydrogen composition in different strengths. And it's the same when you produce different gases, maybe in the same box, you will see this. If you go back to, I don't know if you can find it in the archives, to show this in so many ways, years ago, I used to use a 24 box junction gas production system where there were 24 boxes and each one mini box about 2 centimeter by 2 centimeters, something like this. And it was a box, 24 of them. And wired exactly the same with a slightly different salinity or sometimes the same salinity in certain rows. And we could see production of different color gases. We didn't change anything. And then you could see different thicknesses of amino acid, different shades of colors. If you look at the amino acid on the surface of two different batches, you see the light on them reflects different because the energy hydrogen or whatever is a different strength on it. And in some of them, you don't see any certain shades in, doesn't matter what you do with it, which means the energy of the amino acids is different than the others. It does not absorb, or it only absorbs certain field strength. And at the moment, the knowledge is not there to be able to replicate, like when you go and buy a tomato ketchup today and tomorrow and next week and next year in 20 years' time, from Heinz, always the smells and tastes the same. But the knowledge of the gas is not that far yet to be able to replicate the exact strength. And then it needs time for scientists to develop these technologies. There is a race which is standing outside of this planet They have mastered this game. And they look beautiful people. They have a special feature. And one day, one man become peaceful, they might teach us in a beautiful way how they do it. They have mastered the game of changing the fields in the lowest level in a single molecular atomic structure as field. They're artisans in this. Any other question? Or shall we call it a day?
Yeah, I'll just show a picture, I think, of the unit that you're talking about here that you showed in the Fukushima video.
Yeah, that's the one. If you look, this box is empty, but can you see the different shade of colors in each box? It's the same composition, the same material. But if you look at it, there are different color gases in it. Different color produced. These boxes were original first batteries, gas plasma batteries. Oh, that brings back a lot of memories. I used to spend days making these for one test for half an hour. Can you go back on this? No, Rick. Just
How far back would you like to go?
Just where this box comes in. To open this. Yeah. Yeah, that's good enough.
Do you want me to play it?
Yeah. Play it, just go forward a little bit.
Let me reset it here.
Totally exactly like these materials here. Clean water. You can literally drink this. You can use go forward. Go forward. The same material. Boxes, the same. These two boxes, if I'm correct, are the very original boxes where the energy production of the plasma was confirmed. The very first. We extract CO2. We create an environment. If you look at it when you go close, you see the wires. This is one of the contaminations. This was connected to the LED, left on the table in a normal room, and for months and months was creating light. So a specific way of developing this one is it's using nanowires like a horse tail, and this unit produced electricity for a long time. We could light. We just actually got fed up with it. We dismantled it. I've said that before. Every day I used to send a message to bless his soul, the fluorescence, that I'm still enlightened. That was every day a message. We wanted to see how long, and it went for months and months, and they gave up. He said, "Stop sending me the messages. This thing is going to go for years," and it doesn't stop. It produces about few volts and substantial current, low current. You can amplify it and use it, but it gets clogged up in ganses. And then if there's a shortcut between the plates, then you get the shortcut and they jump, and one day one gas is one color and the next day changes to another color. It goes from red to blue and then it jumps back into black. And it's a very interesting understanding of the plasmatic work. There's two of them, and they're very interesting. This was one of the very first power generating units using the plasma technology to understand and compartment it and see how it goes. And I think one, if I remember correctly, one wire comes out of here and one wire goes out of there. No, I think yeah, this here. We started here and there. These two positions. It came down like this, and as it went, what do we call it? It was set to go in this condition. I don't know if you see it. It's too narrow, and then it came up and it took out. And I could change the GaNs, what they call a salinity in each box and see the voltage output. Brought back a lot of memories. Thank you very much, Rick. Shall we call it a day? Thank you very much for today. I hope we learned a little bit, we shared a little bit.
Okay, very good, Mr. Kesh. Thank you again for your time here in these Knowledge Seekers workshops. And I don't think you've missed a single one in the 426 that we've had so far. So congratulations on that. And thank you for being there for us.
Thank you very much and goodbye.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here today for the 426th Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursday, March 31st, 2022. We'll have the next public teaching workshop will be next Tuesday. Let me get the date on that. We'll be into April, it'll be Tuesday, April 5th, which with the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace, starting at 4 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Okay, I think that's it for now. And we'll go out with the Spaceship Flight Enhancement Unit music version. So everybody can clap their hands and put a smile on your face. Okay, bye for now, everyone.